Whether the team is performing clean or unsightly, we'll cover it all here on Washington Football Nightly. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So, as Washington prepares to take on the Cleveland Browns in week number 3, one thing has become apparent. They cannot afford to get off to another slow start. So, tonight I want to focus on getting off to a fast start. That's, to me, the biggest thing in this football game. And it doesn't necessarily have to be us jumping out to a 17-0 lead and having a role reversal of what's happened in the first 2 weeks, but more rather just having this team have a chance where they're not playing catch up after one quarter. After, quarter and a half, you look up at the scoreboard, you're down 10 or 17, or as in the Arizona game, 20-0. They have to come out and establish themselves earlier, especially on the offensive side of the football. I think with the defense, against Philadelphia, there was some nerves, a little bit of jitters. You saw some really stupid and foolish penalties early in that game that kind of helped contribute to the success the Eagles had. And everything was new. It was the first game of the season, no preseason, and we're a young team, so there were going to be some bumps in the road against Philadelphia. They ironed those things out, and in the second half, they shut down the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, granted, there were still opportunities there for the Eagles. We talked about that already. The defense was not perfect in week 1, but they made enough plays. They frustrated the Eagles. They got out of there with the win. In the second game of the season, they made a play early. The defense established their dominance early in this game. They forced Arizona to punt on a possession. They forced an interception on back-to-back possessions. So they established themselves. They got no help from the offense, and even special teams helped chip in terms of damaging our chances to win the game in week number 2. We can't have the mistakes that we had in the first 2 weeks of the season at the beginning of the game and have the slow start. If we want to have a chance to go on the road and beat the Cleveland Browns, and remember, the Browns will have fans in attendance. So it's not like the first 2 games of the season when no one's going to be in attendance. The Browns had fans on Thursday Night Football. I assume they're going to have fans again on Sunday afternoon. It is imperative that we get off to a much better start. And now that you'll have a crowd there, you're going to give them something to cheer about. If you start slow in this football game, the best thing you can do is get off to a much faster start and give that crowd a reason to keep their mouths shut. Or boo even. That'd be great too. Boo the home team. But we'll talk about ways that can be accomplished when we go behind enemy lines and start talking about the Cleveland Browns and what we have to do from an offensive standpoint and also a defensive standpoint to try and get this win. But I tell you this much, it is a must. This is not optional. If we do not do this, we will have a problem in week number 3. This is not something that we can continue to do. Falling behind and thinking you're just going to come back is fool's gold. And we didn't come back in week 2. However, if they are able to some way find a way to get off to a much better start, it will go a long way in helping this team get to 2-1 on the season. So we now progress to in other news, and there were some really impactful things said by 2 of our better coaches. Of course, Ron Rivera, our head coach, stepped to the podium, and he had some things to say, and I'll tell you some of the cliff notes and some of the things that stuck out to me. And then Jack Del Rio, who I think right now, for all intents and purposes, is a breath of fresh air. He's the guy that I feel most confident in as a coach on this staff outside of Ron Rivera. He's the guy that I'm really comfortable with and have been really impressed with to this point. And not to say that I haven't been impressed with Scott Turner. I told you, I've felt like Scott Turner has called 2 really good games to this point, and the execution hasn't met his play calling to this point. But Del Rio is a guy that I'm just 100% confident in. I mean, I close my eyes and I just say, with blind faith, I'm willing to follow Jack Del Rio because this guy's been through it and he knows what he's got to do, and he's led defenses to the top of the mountain before, and I feel like he's trending in the right direction with this young defense as well. So we'll talk about what Del Rio had to say, but before we get to any of that, I want to take a look at the injury report for this week, and this will be the first time we'll actually take a look, as we often do on Thursdays, at what the Browns have going on. And so let's look at what we have going on at practice and guys that are trending towards playing, and not same with the Cleveland Browns. So as you look at the injury report here. We'll start with the Browns because we haven't talked about them all week long. And this is a little surprising that they've got this many guys on the injury report coming off of a Thursday night game. So they've had extra time to rest, yet they've got a laundry list full of players on their injury report. But as you can see, a lot of these guys are trending towards playing. Of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 guys on the injury report, 5 of them practice fully on Thursday. So that's a great sign towards them playing on Sunday. Now, again, we saw last week, Kendall Fuller practiced on Wednesday and Thursday fully. So did our veteran Thomas Davis Sr., and neither one of those guys played in the game on Sunday. So, it can be misleading sometimes, but more times than not, if a guy's practicing fully on Wednesday and Thursday, more likely than not, they're going to play. And tomorrow we'll have a feel for whether these guys are going to play or not, because we'll see if they practice. Remember, with both Kendall Fuller and Thomas Davis Sr. last week, both of those guys were limited on Friday. And so that was a little bit of a sign that, okay, maybe these guys aren't quite ready to go as we had hoped and been led to believe with the way that they were practicing earlier in the week. So you look at this list of guys, and I'll tell you the ones that really stick out to me. Not all of these guys are key contributors. So, you don't need to concern yourself with every one of these players, but they're a young team similar to us. They've got more veterans on their team than we do, and they're a little bit further ahead in the process than we are. So most of these players are impactful players that you see in front of you, guys that they're counting on because they're such a young football team. But, you look at, for instance, Adrian Claiborne with a hip injury. He was big for them on Thursday Night Football. He was a massive impact player, getting to Joe Burrow and really flustering him along with some of the other guys like Myles Garrett. So if he's not able to go, that's a big blow, especially when you look down the list and you look at Olivier Vernon, who has been a thorn in our side for years. Remember when Trent was here, Olivier Vernon would give him work when he was with the Giants. So he hasn't played all season long. He hasn't practiced this week. It looks like we may get a break and he may not, because initially I was hearing earlier in the week, Olivier Vernon looks like he's going to be healthy enough to go against Washington in week number 3. And so to see that he hasn't practiced all week, I've got my fingers crossed. I don't know if he's going to practice. He may practice on a limited basis on Friday and be ready to go on Sunday. Who knows? But right now, it's trending towards him not playing. And if that's the case, not having Adrian Claiborne, another defensive end in the lineup, that's crucial if he can't go, because now you're down 2 of your best 3 defensive ends. So right now, their defensive line a little banged up, as you can see, and hopefully we'll catch a break there. Jack Conklin, their high-priced free agent acquisition at the right tackle position, hasn't played this season yet, and he didn't play in week number 2 versus Cincinnati. He may be ready to go. It looks like he's going to go. He was limited Wednesday, came back fully practiced on Thursday. We'll see what happens on Friday. If he's a full go Friday, I'd assume he'd be ready to go and in the lineup come week 3 versus us. So we may not get a break there. But another place that they've had some issues, cornerback position, really their secondary as a whole. Grant Delpit, a guy that they were going to rely on this season at the safety position as a rookie out of LSU, tore his Achilles in camp. He's done for the season. You look at Greedy Williams was a guy that got hurt in camp as well with his shoulder. He's been limited this week. If you look down at the bottom at number 26, second to the last guy on this list, he was limited on Wednesday and Thursday. So right now, he's kind of up in the air as to whether he'll be able to return to the lineup in week number 3 versus Washington or not. I think, again, tomorrow's going to be a big day for a guy like Greedy Williams. If he's not able to go, if he's still limited, more likely than not, he's trending towards not playing once again. Remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So they're not going to rush these guys back. It's only week 3. So they're not looking to rush these guys back because they know they're in it for the long haul. They need these guys to mend and heal so that they can play more games moving forward and not just trying to get them back for a game out of the conference at that. So Greedy Williams is another guy to look at. Also, Johnson is another guy. Kevin Johnson, the ex-first round pick, is a guy that's dealing with a liver injury. He practiced on a limited basis Wednesday, but he's practiced fully on Thursday, so he may be able to go. You also look at a big name there, and it's highlighted. And the guys in the bold are guys that are starters, that are big time guys that they need. And Ward, Denzel Ward, their best corner, by far and away their best corner, is a guy that you look at and you say, wow, I didn't even know he was on the injury report. He played well last week versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Didn't practice on Wednesday. He wasn't even on the injury report on Wednesday. And then he turns around and is limited. I think he's going to be fine. Anytime you have a guy that just pops up on the injury report, randomly on a Thursday, unless it's something serious, I usually trend towards that guy's going to play, and I assume he's going to be just fine and A-okay for the game. But we'll see. If he's limited again tomorrow, then maybe we have something to talk about. But right now, I think Denzel Ward's going to play. You look at the rest of those guys there. J.C. Treader is a guy that is a veteran center that easily could miss this game. He's been limited all week. Sione Takitaki is a guy that they drafted out of BYU as a rookie this year, and they were expecting big things from him. And he looks like he's going to go. He was a full participant on Wednesday, full participant on Thursday. So I would assume he's going to go. You see Jarvis Landry up there. Of course, he's a starter as well, but he's a full participant both days. I don't think he's going to miss. So when you look at this list, Mack Wilson is the guy that picked Dwayne off in his very first NFL game in the preseason last year. At the linebacker position, another guy that they rely on heavily. He's been limited this week. Hasn't had a full day of practice all week long. So this list is long, and all of these guys, for the most part, are impactful players. So they could be without a lot of guys that really help them in week number 3. And so I'm really hopeful that a handful or maybe more of these guys aren't able to go. I told you I don't wish for injuries, but if you're given a gift, I am more than willing to accept it. If we can get 5 or 6 of these guys out of the lineup in week 3, that would be great. And you look at our lineup and our injury report, we know about all these guys. These are the guys we talked about yesterday. Ryan Anderson with a shin injury. He was a full participant today. All right. So was Thomas Davis Sr. Remember, he wasn't dealing with an injury this week. Remember, he was supposed to play on Sunday, it seemed like. He was trending towards that. He had an illness. All right, so now he's a full participant today. Again, the key for him, we need to see it on Friday, because last Friday we got a limited participation out of him, and he ended up not playing. Another full participant, Ryan Kerrigan. Look, we know he's an Iron Man. He's not going to miss many games. Last year, in his 8th season in the league, he finally missed a game in his career for the first time. So this is a guy I don't worry about. Nicks and bruises aren't going to stop him. It's going to have to be something serious. He's going to battle through a toe injury, and he was a full participant today. Morgan Moses did not practice today. That's a little concerning. But when you listen to Ron Rivera at his presser talk about Morgan Moses, it sounds like he's going to play. Morgan Moses is the equivalent of Ryan Kerrigan on the offensive side of the football to me. He's a guy that just always seems to play. And he plays through injuries. He battles through things. You guys love to complain about Morgan Moses. We need to upgrade the right tackle position. But he doesn't miss games. And so I'm going, until he doesn't play, I'm going to assume Morgan Moses is going to play. But listening to Ron Rivera, he made it seem as if Morgan, they're being precautious with him, but they also want to get other guys reps, just in case Morgan gets nicked. Other guys are getting in there. Remember, we've already got a new right guard in there in Wes Schweitzer because of the injury to Brandon Sheriff. So they're just trying to be a little bit precautious with Morgan Moses. I think he's going to play, but he did not practice on Thursday, which is not a good sign. Steven Sims Jr. is a guy that I told you of all the players up here, because I assumed Morgan Moses was going to be ready to go. He was the guy that concerned me the most. He was limited today in practice. He was working with the positional groups. He did not take part in the full practice as listed here. So I'm going to be watching him. He's such a huge part of what we do. I talked about his impact on special teams, but remember, he's the guy running in motion 800 times on ghost jet sweeps and things of that nature. That's a huge part of Scott Turner's offense, guys going in motion, and you have to do it correctly. I'm not sure that I trust the young guys to go in motion and do it the way that it's supposed to be done. I told you I thought that there was a little bit of a foobar, as Jay Gruden would call it, by Antonio Gandy Golden in motion on one play where he simply didn't get back to the line of scrimmage fast enough to actually be a part of the play as a blocker, because I think he went too far on his motion. So Sims is such a huge part of what we do, and he's an impactful player as well. I hope he is able to go, because he's a big part of this offense. Look, we don't have many playmakers. He's one of them. We need him to be healthy. But you look at the rest of the guys. Sadiq Charles is a guy that we're not counting on right now for production. Hopefully he gets healthy. That's the biggest thing. He just needs to get healthy. Rivera termed it a bit of a setback that he's back on the injury report after not being on the injury report a week ago. And then Cole Holcomb, that knee injury was a lot more serious than we were led to believe. I'm almost at the point now where I'm like, why didn't you just put him on IR? He didn't play last week. He's not going to play this week. Maybe he'll be ready next week, and that's why you don't put him on IR, because it guarantees that guy's going to miss 3 games. But at this point, Holcomb is taking up a roster spot, and it doesn't seem like he's getting back on the field anytime soon. So maybe that knee injury isn't as bad, but it seems like it as of right now. He's not going to play again in week number 3. So there you are with our injuries. I think we're shaping up well in terms of the injury department, but we'll see what happens with this football team. So we get back to the coaches stepping up to the podium, and we'll start first with Ron Rivera. And there's been a lot of comments and a lot of chatter about Dwayne Haskins' play early in the season, and rightfully so. It's been uneven at best. And so, he talked, and this is the thing I love about Rivera and why this is the perfect fit for Dwayne Haskins in terms of a coach that is his head coach. Because in other situations, maybe there isn't as much patience for Dwayne and some of the things that they're seeing. But Ron Rivera has been through this before with Cam Newton. And I really think that a lot of the struggles of Cam Newton from a mechanic standpoint, Dwayne Haskins has a lot of those same issues. They may not be the exact same things, but Cam Newton had some mechanical issues with throwing the football, and a lot of his balls would sail. And Dwayne has his own set of issues. They may not be the identical issues that Cam suffered from, but it was the same end result. Bad mechanics led to balls that sailed. And I told you, Cam Newton is a guy that lacks touch when he throws the football. Everything is a 97, 98, 99 mile an hour fastball with Cam Newton, even though underneath throws. Dwayne suffers from a lot of the same things that Ron Rivera saw in a young Cam Newton back in 2011 when he was, first starting out and Cam was a rookie. And so I think he understands this process more so and understands the plight of Dwayne Haskins and the growth that is necessary and the time that is also and patience that is also necessary to allow him to grow more so than other coaches may have been if they were in this same situation. So I really like that Ron is the coach here. And, he talked about, having some of these same things that he went through with Cam Newton. And so he understands that this is a process. And that, and we talk about this all the time. We use the P word a ton. No, not playoffs. We're not using that P word around here, but process. I talk about it being a process and that there are going to be growing pains. That's another P word we use a lot that you guys don't like to hear, some of you at least. I'm not talking to all of you, but at the end of the day, Ron has said, look, we like some of the growth, and he pointed to specific situations in the game. He said, look, I like the throw to Terry McLaurin on the 9 ball. We showed that. I showed that in the film, and we talked about it. The one that was over his outside shoulder. Look, if the defender were in phase and right there, that was a perfect throw. But the defender was on his back. It was behind him, actually, by about a step and a half, maybe even 2 steps. I want that ball out in front of Terry, allow him to run under it and towards the end zone for a touchdown, not diving towards out of bounds. But, again, if that defender were in phase and were right there on Terry's hip, that's a perfect ball. It's outside shoulder towards out of bounds. Only Terry can get to it. And he said, look, that was a well-thrown football. He said, the ball to Steven Sims, that's what we're looking for. And that, to me, I told you in the film, that was his best ball of the day. And it's not even close. To me, that was his best ball of the day. It had touch. It had accuracy. It was within the timing and rhythm of the play. Everything you're looking for, you got it on that particular throw. And we've seen Dwayne do that before. That's not the first time I've seen him throw with touch and accuracy. So I know he's capable. And Rivera said the same thing. He said, look, we're just looking for consistency. That's all. We're looking for him to take some of the things he did in the Arizona game in the second half and carry them into the first half of the Cleveland game and not wait until the third quarter or the fourth quarter to get hot and start throwing the football with confidence and playing with consistency. So they're just looking for, and it's early in the season and everyone's trying to feel out. It's a filling out process. The coordinator's trying to fill out the players. The players are trying to fill out the coordinator. And Dwayne told you himself, he didn't trust the coordinator, his play calls sometimes. He didn't trust the offensive line and his protection sometimes. And he said, I didn't trust the receivers. I was coming off of reads too quick. Like, Dwayne's already told you what his mindset was, and that he's going through a process right now where he's trying to become more comfortable in everything that is around him, including the play callers, including the offensive line and the receivers that he's throwing the football to. So it's a process. And when you haven't played with these guys, you haven't established a rapport with these guys, these are the things that can go wrong, like Terry running up the sideline and Dwayne thinking he's going to, on the same page with him, back shoulder fade, and Terry takes it up the field and it's an incomplete pass. These are all things that will be ironed out over time. So as Dwayne settles in, his footwork will calm down. As he trusts the offensive line, his footwork will calm down. His process, I told you, what I really want to see from Dwayne, and to me, this is, it's all encompassing. I just want to see the game slow down for Dwayne. And Ron Rivera essentially is saying the same thing. He just wants to see the game slow down for Dwayne. And in that moment, you will get consistency from him. And so he's looking for that consistency. And he talked a lot about the comparisons between Dwayne and a young Cam Newton. And I think there are a lot of similarities there. He talked about the early season tests that we're getting from these teams. Each team has been really different. You know, we haven't had teams that have been really similar in their philosophical execution. Like, you know, Philadelphia is a lot closer to Arizona offensively than they are defensively. They do some different things defensively, but neither one of those teams really, you know, care to run the ball all that much. Both of them like to spread you out. Both of them go from the gun a ton. In Arizona's case, they're exclusively from the gun pretty much. They don't get under center very often. Kyler Murray is not under center. Even when they went under center, they took Kyler Murray out of getting the football. They put in Chris Streveler when they were going under center because Kyler Murray's just not used to going under center. So you're dealing with a team that is primarily in gun. Then you go to Cleveland. They're an under center football team. They're a traditional NFL offense. Two backs, a tight end or two, and they're going to want to run it down your throat, and then they're going to go play action fake off of that. And they're more Los Angeles Rams than they are Arizona Cardinals. And so we haven't seen a team like this season, from a philosophical standpoint. We haven't seen an under center team that wants to maul you in the run game. That's not Philadelphia. That's not Arizona. So he's like, hey, this is a different challenge for us. And it's good to see how we react to that different challenge because we haven't seen this year. They haven't even gotten those looks in practice because we're not even that type of team. We're more of a gun team like Arizona and like Philadelphia. So we haven't given our defense that look either. And he said, from a defensive standpoint, he said that, Cleveland's more like Arizona. So it's not going to be as big of a change there. But, we're seeing another different offense in as many weeks. And so he said that's going to be a little bit of a challenge. But, he's looking forward to seeing how the team responds. And he said the same thing about Dwayne. He said, I'm looking forward to seeing how Dwayne responds. He said, I get excited every time Dwayne steps on the field because I'm looking for maturation and growth. And every time he gets a chance to play, and then he went back to the thing that he always harps on. A lot of these guys haven't played. Dwayne hasn't played a ton of football. Troy Apke hasn't played a ton of football. Jaron Christian hasn't played a ton of football. These are guys that we're relying on, but they haven't played a ton of football. And in order for them to get the experience necessary to give us the consistency that we're looking for, they have to play more. They have to make some mistakes. And then they have to learn from those mistakes, and that will make them better in the long haul. So he also talked about playing different guys. We talked about that on Wednesday's show, so I don't really need to rehash that. He kind of said the same thing. Look, we want to see a lot of these guys. We need them. This is something that he added to that discussion, though. He said, we need these guys to stay healthy so they can get the reps that we need to see and evaluate them to understand where they fit in our grand scheme? Is this a guy that moving forward is going to be playing, 75, 80, 90% of the snaps for us? Or is this a guy that is a fixture of this team, but he's a guy that we don't need to play as much, maybe 30% of the snaps, maybe 15% of the snaps? This isn't a guy that has to play, but we want him on the team because he helps this football team. He makes this football team better, but we don't need to play him as much. That's what you're trying to figure out. And he said that's the key in guys staying healthy. And, you feel like he's talking about a guy like a Steven Sims. We need him on the field. We need to evaluate what Steven Sims can do. We need to be able to see how he can contribute. You're talking about a guy like Ryan Anderson. This is a guy in a contract season. Well, if you want to re-sign him, I don't think they do. I honestly think this is his last season in Washington. But, you need him to stay healthy. You need him to be on the field and be available so you can see what this guy can bring to the table. So you get to Del Rio, and I told you my level of comfort with Del Rio. It's through the roof. I feel like he's a guy that we haven't had on this football team from a defensive standpoint, a defensive coach. We haven't had this kind of defensive coach, and I've told you guys this already, since Greg Williams. We haven't had this level of competence as a defensive coordinator since Greg Williams, and that's a pretty long time. You're talking about all the way back in 2006, maybe 2007 was the last year Greg Williams was here. Because it was the last year of Gibbs 2.0. So, you're talking about over a decade of incompetence at defensive coordinator. Jim Haslett wasn't terrible. That's a guy that I always felt like he blitzed a ton, and sometimes unnecessarily so. But you live by the blitz, you die by the blitz. I've always said that. So I liked him a little bit more than most. But that's nor here nor there. This is since Greg Williams was the last time we had a guy like Jack Del Rio. So he talked about wanting to see consistency and growth, which I think everybody wants to see that. And I love the fact that Jack's not going to give you a lot. They're trying to bait Jack into talking a lot, and Jack's a veteran. He's been around the block a couple of times. Jack's not going to give you a soundbite. So, he's pretty much, because they tried to ask him about a miscommunication between Landon Collins and Fabian Moreau on the first touchdown of the game, where that was all Landon Collins. Anybody watch film knows Landon Collins is supposed to get depth there. He's standing at the goal line. He never moved, and Fabian Moreau was expecting him to sag back, and DeAndre Hopkins can't be wide open that way. That was all Landon Collins. Landon Collins put his hands on his head after the play. He knew he effed up. So anybody watching, and we talked about that on the film, anybody watching knows that was all Landon Collins. But he's not going to throw Landon Collins under the bus. He's like, look, we got to be better. We have to be better. I talked to the guys. They know what they did wrong on that play, or what happened on the deep ball to Andy Isabella. We talked about all that stuff. We ironed it out. And guys know what their responsibility is, and moving forward, we're looking for these guys to be better, and that's all we're looking for is growth and consistency. Get better each and every single week and be more consistent. More consistent than you were the week before. So he talked about that, and then they asked him about the defense being tentative, and remember Ron used that word, that the defense was a little tentative, and that he had a talk with Jack, and Jack was like, look, I'm not talking to you about private conversations, so you can cancel all of that. But I will tell you this, they're not going to be tentative this week because we're not playing Kyler Murray. And I told you guys in the film study, and I even told you guys, I think on one of these shows this week, that they were tentative because of Kyler Murray. I told you they clammed up because in their mind, and this is what happens when people, it's no different than, an adult or a parent or someone that is supervising a child, and you keep banging and repeating something to a child over and over again. They're going to be very cognizant of that. So much to a point that it might become a problem, to a fault. And that's what happened. You keep talking about Kyler Murray's legs, and you got to stay in your rush lanes. You can't be over aggressive. If you go up the field too far, he's going to run. You start thinking about that. Now you're kind of self-policing yourself, and you're overlooking situations, and you're overdoing it. You're thinking to yourself, oh, I can't do what I want to do here, because if I do, Kyler Murray's going to get loose. And I think guys were a little tight. And the bad part was, and Jack Del Rio said this, was he still got off on us. So, at some point you just got to go out and play football. If a play happens, it happens, but you can't be tentative because he still got off. And he likened it to Barry Sanders from when he played. He said, back in the day, we had the Barry Sanders rule. He said you couldn't relax until you got on the bus after the game was over when you were playing against Barry Sanders, because you think, oh, he's on the opposite side of the field, I'm out of this play, I'm good. And then all of a sudden Barry Sanders makes 4 cuts and he's coming back towards you, and you thought the play was over and you didn't have to do anything on that particular play. And the same thing with Kyler Murray. You can never relax against him. And I think a lot of those players were a little tentative, and you saw it in their performance. But Jack said, look, at the end of the day, we're not playing Kyler Murray at all again this season. And, unless there's a playoff game or something, we're not playing Kyler Murray again. And that was a great experience for them. They do have Lamar Jackson on the schedule, so it's going to be pretty comparable. But they're not the same players either. But at the end of the day, he said that was the reason they climbed up. And I'm hoping that this is practice for Lamar Jackson in a couple of weeks. So we'll see. But Jack Del Rio was pretty honest in saying, look, we got to be better. And he said, and it starts with me. And I told the players, I got to be better. And I'm showing them examples of why I got to be better. And so I need them to understand that it's just not them. It's not you. It's we. We have to be better. Us as a team, we have to be better. And so I love the fact that he's not pointing any fingers. We got to do this as a team. So now let's go to be behind enemy lines. And let's talk about some keys to the game for Washington to try to get this win. Let's start with the Browns offense versus our defense because that's our strength. Look, there's no secret here. You got to stop the run game. That's the first thing you have to do if you want to have any success against the Browns. And like I said, I don't think there's any stopping their rush offense. I think it's just looking to slow them down. You got two backs that are averaging close to 6 yards. Think about that for a second, what I'm about to say. Close to 6 yards a carry. Both of these guys are averaging at or above 5.8 yards per tote. That's insane. That means every 2 carries, they got a first down between these two guys. All right. So on average, that is. So you're talking about Nick Chubb, who's 4th in the league in rushing right now, and Kareem Hunt, who's tied for 9th in the league in rushing. So 2 top 10 rushers after the first 2 weeks of the season. That's what we have to contend with. These guys are legit. They're as legit as it gets in this league, and their run game is potent. Their offensive line, they blow guys back off the football, and if we don't come prepared, they will knock our socks off in the run game. And if they can run it, it bleeds to other elements. It leads to other elements of their offense, like play action fake, which they are very, very good at. Baker Mayfield is at his best when he is able to turn his back to the defense, roll out of the pocket, reset his feet, or he's able to turn his back to the defense, take a 5 to 7 step drop, and let it rip. We cannot allow them to have the type of success that forces us to bring a safety in the box or forces us to be over aggressive in stopping the run. And all of a sudden now you got those dig routes and deep crossers open over the middle of the football field because we're selling out to stop the run. We've got to contain the run game early and often in this game if we want to have a chance for success. I think the next thing you have to do is you got to frustrate Baker Mayfield. You have to make him uncomfortable. I really think we can go back to getting to the quarterback this week because Baker Mayfield is a less mobile threat. Now, don't get it twisted. Baker Mayfield can move, and he will. And he's a guy that can create off schedule. He throws a really pretty football on the move. So, again, he's a guy that you have to contain. But at the same time, he's not a Kyler Murray or a Carson Wentz athlete for that matter. So, he's a guy that I think you can get to. He's a guy that I think you can force the issue on and force him into some mistakes. But you got to get to him first. And that's going to be a key is slow the run game down. Force the Browns into 3rd and long. That was something we struggled with last week. A lot of 3rd and shorts. You give Odell Beckham and you give Jarvis Landry opportunities to convert 3rd and 3s, 3rd and 4s. They're going to do that. So put them in 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 7s, 3rd and 9s. Make them have to convert 3rd and long and give yourself a chance to get off the field. Another thing that I feel like we have to do is we have to limit the penalties. We didn't have a ton of penalties last week, but and we didn't have a ton of penalties the week before that. But we've got to find we had some foolish penalties in week 1, but we eliminated those in week 2, and we weren't heavily penalized, but we had some penalties. We need to make sure, but most of those were on the offensive side. Whereas in week 1, we didn't have a lot of offensive penalties, if any at all. So we need to make sure that we're disciplined on the defensive side of the football. And Baker's really good with the hard count. Let's not give them any free yardage. Make sure you're taking care of the things you need to take care of. And I think we'll be fine. And so those are things that I really focus in on. You look at individual matchups. Keep everything in front of you. Odell Beckham is a guy that can get loose, has some speed. Keep everything. Limit the big plays. All right, let's not give up a 55-yarder and allow them to be already at our 22-yard line after one play. Let's limit the big plays. Arizona had 2 big plays last week. One to Andy Isabella, another one to Cameron Kirk down the sidelines, or Christian Kirk down the sidelines. In Philadelphia's game week 1, we gave up the big one to Rager. He had another opportunity for another one. Deshaun Jackson had an opportunity for a deep one. We've got to limit the big plays. We've had too many of those available to our opponents these first couple of weeks. So you flip the script and you get to the offensive side of the football, and we'll talk more about this game tomorrow when I give my prediction. Offensively, we have to start fast. And to me, the best way to do that, I don't want to see a run on first down next week. I want us to come out and I want the short passing game. What has Dwayne done well to this point? The short passing game, the slants, the outs, things of that nature. That's what I want to see from this offense. I want Scott Turner to make Dwayne Haskins comfortable from the word go. The way to do that, run a slant on first down to Terry McLaurin. Get him a completion. Let him see the football being caught instead of it being 3rd and 7 the first time he attempts a pass, and then he's got pressure, and now we got a punt because it's an incomplete pass. First down and 10, first snap of the game. I want a quick completion. I don't care if it's a wide receiver screen to Steven Sims. I want Dwayne to get a completion so he can see that, hey, I can get into a rhythm early in this game so we can start faster on the offensive side of football. We cannot afford another 3 and out to start this game. And I think that's something. You know, another thing that I want to see, and then we'll get out of here. Big plays. At least one big chunk play in this game. We haven't had enough of them. Yeah, we've had our fair share of 20-plus plays. A lot of those are wide receiver screens. We had a run by Antonio Gibson. We haven't had a 45-yard chunk play in the passing game. We need one of those. I want to see that happen this week. I don't care if it's wide receiver screen. I don't care if it's Terry getting loose in the secondary. I don't care if it's a catch and then a guy misses a tackle and off to the races. We need a chunk play. These methodical, 8 to 10 to 12 play drives are hard to put together when you're a young offense. You know what is the best friend of an offense that's struggling? A 55-yard play that cuts the field in half or gives you a chance to score immediately. We need big plays in this game. At least one. I'd like 2 in this game versus the Browns. They're capable of giving them up. We have to be able to take advantage of this Browns defense that's very banged up, as you already saw. We've got to take advantage of that. We've got to protect better. Myles Garrett scares the hell out of me. We'll talk more about him tomorrow. He's going to be another huge key in terms of our offense being functional. He's got to be slowed down. That guy's a big-time major problem. We'll talk about him and some other things on Friday's show before I give my prediction. So that's Behind Enemy Lines. I'm going to wrap today's show up. And I can't wait to read some of your comments in the comment section about what you think this team needs to do in order to have a chance to win. I'll give my prediction for this game tomorrow, but I'll tell you this much. I think this is a game that is there for the taking. We'll see what happens with this football team, and I'll give you my prediction tomorrow. But that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on Washington Football Nightly. Remember, if it's not your man T, it's not, I repeat, not the best NFL coverage it could be. Until next time, I'm your man Louie T, and this has been Washington Football Nightly. You guys have a good one. And remember, if you haven't already done so, what are you waiting on? Subscribe to the Louie T Network. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And also like this and all the videos on the Louie T Network. I'll see you guys next time.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap. Hand to Riggins. Good hold. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35, the 30, the 20. He's gone. He's gone.